slap on that recording button, say hey, hi, hello, welcome back, Alexandrian Codex. I'm alive. I'm also very tired, and I can't be fucked to think about what to play, so Islanders. And, you know, a year ago, or 2 years ago, prior to Islanders coming out, if you had told me that this would be my go-to, I don't know what to do, I guess I'll record this game, could have fooled me. Could have fooled me. Oh, God. It's beautiful, quiet, still morning. Like, I can't hear anything except seagulls right now. Wow, seagulls, the sound of distant air conditioning units. Maybe the fans in my apartment, my white noise machine. Yeah, I've always been a bit of a morning person. I mean, I hate waking up. I hate being awake, I should say. But I always have been a bit of a morning person in that these, what is it, like, it's almost 8. Well, for Seattle, that means it's like 6 in the morning right now. I've always liked waking up at 5 or 6 in the morning. Kind of just being around while the world is still not really here yet. It's the same sort of thing I get out of being awake at night. You know, it's quiet, there's not a lot of noise, not a lot of expectation. It's a very private time. It's a very still time where there's a lot of potential in the air and a lot of patience. There's not a lot of rush, there's not a lot of this anxious energy that we carry around so often. It's a really nice time of day. Yeah. I woke up in a pretty good mood today. Was talking with someone I like a lot, which helps. That's always a nice way to start out the day. I had some crazy dreams last night. You know, I've had crazier, but these were very immersive, and waking up from super immersive dreams, I've talked about this before, it's really difficult to do sometimes. It's so easy to get sucked into that fantasy or that reality, and to pop out of it and be like, oh, fuck. I'm back to this reality. It's, let's say quirks, to put it gently. Yeah. Now, when I felt that way when I was younger, I often worried, like, oh, you know, this is a pretty telltale sign of mental illness. You know, that I'd rather be asleep. I'd rather be hallucinating realities than participating in this shared material reality. And I was definitely kind of ashamed to admit that I like a lot of my sleeping life more than I like my waking life. Because, you know, there's some negative connotation that comes with that. Like, oh, you know, how sad that you'd rather not exist than participate in the shared material reality. But as I've gotten older, rather, buzzified, but as I've gotten older, I've begun to appreciate and realize that that feeling is more a condemnation of the reality that we've inherited more than anything else. If, you know, if this capitalist American society is so toxic that it makes young people cripplingly depressed, rather be asleep or medicated or intoxicated or whatever else than actually directly participating in it, then it's not a good system. And yeah, I appreciate that not everything we're doing is going to be comfortable or easy or fun. I'm not talking about that. Dreams I had last night weren't fun. They were exhausting emotionally. There was a lot of intrigue and deception, and lying and fear. But the fulcrum of the dreams I had last night, and the fulcrum, the hinge point of so many of these dreams that are so hard to let go of, is this feeling of agency. Not, ooh, I can go wherever I want and do whatever I want. Not even like lucid dreams with that degree of agency. I mean just agency in terms of being able to meaningfully impact the world around me and the people around me, or the people in my life who I care about. Those are the dreams that are the hardest to let go of. And they're the most heartbreaking to wake up from. To go from this sensation of possibility, of agency, of not even power so much as accessibility to power, or proximity to power, maybe. Waking up from that to a reality where so much power and so much agency that's inherent in being a human being has been consciously and institutionally and just methodically ripped away. It's very difficult. Like, I don't know. I have a really hard time imagining what it's like to wake up and be excited about this world, about our reality, about being alive in America today. I was feeling I don't know. Maybe while Bernie was in the running was probably the closest I've been in a long time. While I've been working on the design projects I've been working on, I haven't woken up with excitement, but I've often woken up with this feeling of purpose. Particularly in these last weeks, as I've been going on supply runs or directly participating in protests. Waking up with this feeling of purpose has been a thing. But that's not the same, right? That's not the same as excitement or enthusiasm. This feeling of purpose that I'm describing, this feeling of importance, it's often accompanied by waking up multiple times in the middle of the night, or not being able to stop fixating and thinking or talking about the thing that I'm feeling a sense of purpose, or deriving a sense of purpose from. That's not the same as this idea I have in my head that people do. I have this idea that people wake up in the morning and can just let it be peaceful and still and be happy about things like eating breakfast, or I don't know. I have this really artificial creation in my mind, I guess. And so it's probably important to recognize that, yeah, it's artificial, and yeah, I know that. But so much of my expectations and understandings of what healthy normalcy looks like is informed by media. It really is. Now, I'm not saying like, ooh, boo-hoo, poor me, or I'm an edge case. I really don't think I'm an edge case in this. I feel like for the vast majority of Americans, at least around my age, the vast majority of what we were taught and what was propped up as being healthy and normal were, like, by and large, entirely fabricated. And even when we talk about normal, even the language that I'm using, normal and healthy, neurotypical and biotypical are not necessarily more healthy, more conductive to a long or happy or healthy life. They're just conductive to the narratives that we have based around those things. For example, depending on the circumstances, neurodivergent folks, depending on what sort of neuroses they have, may be better suited to certain tasks, certain jobs, certain survival situations than your textbook neurotypical person. And this next part is a really, really important note to make and to internalize. There are no neurotypical people. Now, I understand there's probably some emotional pushback against that statement, understandably. Neurotypical people, in my mind, don't exist. They don't. They exist in textbooks. They exist as this vague amalgamation of the human experience, or human experiences. They exist as this this thing that doesn't really exist in nature, right? It's just like the average human. What is the average human? Well, that average human does not actually exist. You know, you can take a bunch of experiences and say like, well, the average American, da 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 da. But you're not going to go out into the wild and find this average American. So too, in the same way, you're not going to go out and find a neurotypical person. You are not going to find someone like that in the wild. They don't exist. Now, there are people who have small neurodivergences, slight neurodivergences. There are people within this range that's deemed neurotypical or functional, or, you know, whatever else, what other language you want to use there. But I feel like that sort of narrative, that sort of way of thinking eliminates and marginalizes so many experiences and so many realities that folks have. So often when folks, uneducated folks mostly, talk about neurodivergent folks, so often the discourse is based around normalizing them, or rehabilitating them, or making it so that they are able to learn how to perform as if they're neurotypical, act like as if they're neurotypical. And so much of it is just accommodation to fit this image of a thing that doesn't really exist. Just very American. Just abundantly American in attitude. But it's really interesting when we talk about disabilities here in the United States. Disabilities are important by law and important in economics because they affect your profitability in as much as you are able to produce, in as much as you consume, in what regard you consume, in what degree, in what regard you're able to participate in normalized society. Like, if you were to ask me, Alex, do you have any disabilities? My gut reaction is to say no. Dude, yeah, of course I do. I've been visually impaired most of my life, but this is a correctable disability, so that I'm able to... So there's a burden I take on myself. Now, I have to pay for, upkeep, maintain this piece of hardware in order to function as if I am a able-bodied person, right? And it's just the expectation that I should do so. This is not covered by government programs. There are no subsidies to make sure that I have glasses. I don't get these for free. These cost me hundreds and hundreds of dollars every time I go to replace them, right? Now, there are cheaper alternatives, but cheaper does not mean that they'd be meeting my needs, or they'd have the kind of durability or comfort level that is necessary to minimize this hardware's impact on my life. And like, this is a thing I don't talk about much unless I plan on having sex with you. So yeah, let's just jump into that. If you've ever had sex with someone who wears glasses, have you talked with them about that beforehand, or have you not really engaged with that? Because what I just did, is a huge act of vulnerability. A massive act of vulnerability. I can't even see the camera that's at arm's length clearly. That's out of focus. The screen is out of focus. I can't read the text on my screen, which is again at arm's length. I'm nearsighted. Once something gets about, I don't know, 5-6 inches away from my face, it's no longer clearly visible. It starts being distorted. So go ahead and use your imagination to think about how that impacts my experience with sex. Like, if I want to really see the person I'm with, I have to have these on, or get contacts, or corrective surgery. That's a really shitty feeling. That's a really shitty feeling. Like, I can't be actually naked with someone and see them naked. Yeah, I can feel them, and the low depth of field is not a hugely impeding attribute. I have a very satisfying and fun sex life regardless of this disability, but it's a thing. And all of my partners, all of them that I've brought this up with, have been kind of shocked and blown away and gone like, oh wow, I never really thought about that. So seriously, if you've had sex with someone who wears glasses and they have taken off their glasses while you have sex, or while they sleep with you, like, they are being vulnerable on a level that you can't properly appreciate. Seriously, like, every day when I wake up, my vision is incredibly impaired. If if someone were to break in to where I live, or if there were a fire or an earthquake, I don't start out being able to jump to my feet and see what's going on. I have to reach out, grab where I think my glasses are, put them on, and then I can see. I can jump up and act, and I'm not trying to hyperbolize this. I'm not trying to make this sound more dramatic than it is. You get used to it. You get attuned to it. It's not earth-shattering, but it's there. You know, my greatest fear when it comes to losing a sense, I'd rather lose smell, taste, and touch before I lose vision. And hearing. I'd rather lose hearing. I'd rather lose all of the other senses than lose vision. What little vision I still have. Now, there's a lot of reasons for that. You know, we are a hugely visually based society. We're a hugely visually oriented culture. Now, I'm being very intentional here with not saying species, because saying we are a hugely visually oriented species excludes folks who are blind or visually impaired. Evolutionarily, we trend towards being visually based, or visually... What would you even call visually centric? Ocular centric? Yeah, I don't know. There's probably terminology for it. I totally forget. Oh, right, I was talking about being neurotypical. Or biotypical. I think biotypical isn't a phrase, but I like it, so I'm gonna keep using it, because... yeah. So the point I was trying to illustrate there is, even when people have seemingly minor or treatable divergences from this norm, it is still, you know, we still need to appreciate there are differences and there are divergences from the norm, even when they're small, even when they seem treatable, even when they seem like not a big deal. I got teased as a kid for needing glasses. Well, the whole four eyes thing seems like a bad old joke at this point, but it really hurt me when I was a little kid. It did. Because I didn't have a choice, right? I have this internalized thing that I'm doing right now, so I'm speaking. This kind of self-correcting voice, like, you know, Alex, is this even worth talking about? Because, yeah, you know, the experiences that you have been at times uncomfortable or painful, but you don't have it as bad as other people. You could have it worse. At least you're not X. At least you're not Y. I have that going on in my head. I do. But I think that internalized voice is so often used to silence real experiences, to silence real concerns, real suffering, real human moments. And it's something we need to unlearn. Yes, we need to put less privileged voices than our own before our own. We need to use our privilege, our power, to boost those who are systemically, are socially, are structurally disadvantaged more than we are, or empowered less than we are. But that doesn't mean that, you know, these issues don't exist, these problems don't exist, these feelings, these concerns, these realities don't exist simultaneously. You know, intersectionality is a very difficult thing, honestly, it's a very difficult thing for me to internalize. Intersectionality if you're not familiar, is essentially no human being is just one thing. You're not just white, you're not just straight, you're not just black, you're not just queer, you're not just trans, you're not just non-binary, you're not just visually impaired, you're not just audioly impaired, you're not just neurodivergent, you're not just ADHD, etc., etc., etc. We are an intersection of a lot of different classifications and experiences. And it is impossible, well, and therefore by extent, our society and our culture is not monolithically just racist, just patriarchal, just capitalist, just etc., authoritarian, yada 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 yada. It's all of these things, and all of these things have sections where they overlap, like in a Venn diagram, right? And that means that you can't always be talking about everything all at once. And oftentimes there's overlap and intersection, hence the name, between different subjects, different fields, different experiences. But it is so difficult for me to believe in the legitimacy of my fears, of my concerns, of my struggles, of my difficulties, of my frustrations, of my, disadvantages. Because I am so privileged. I am so, fuck, that should have been over here, whatever. I'm so advantaged. I'm so supported by the society in which I exist. Like, I was thinking last night, actually, or yesterday afternoon, one of the two, that I was really remarking to myself how difficult it is for me to fail. Really fail in this capitalist society. There's so many things set up to empower white people, to empower white people assigned male at birth, or white people who present as male. So many. Holy shit, so many things. I was in a Twitch chat in Alpaca Patrol Rob's Twitch chat. If you're not familiar, great dude. It's been an absolute joy to see him be more and more politically vocal and radical over the last, really since about February. It's been an absolute joy. There was a conversation in his word wrong, in his Twitch chat, as someone, they were from an Eastern European country, they were criticizing modern socialism as compared to 20th century socialism, because they were thinking that modern socialism focuses too much on minorities and not enough on normal people. Like, oh dear, you got some unpacking there to do. But what they're feeling is not atypical, right? Intersectionality was not a concept that I really had to grapple with or really had to engage with until I was in college. And then only because I'm a social sciences major. Like, I think about how ignorant I was my first years of college, last year, yesterday, etc., etc. I think about how ignorant I've been in the past, and the way that having a social sciences focused education has really done amazing work to whittle away at that and work away at that and better me as a human being. And then I think about how the vast majority of people, even if college educated, even if university or grad school level educated, don't have this kind of education. Don't have this kind of deprogramming is what it's called, deprogramming of all the indoctrination and propaganda present in the American public school system, in the American kind of group consciousness, if you will. We are so cultured and indoctrinated in our modes of thinking, in our expectations about reality, and just so many things. And maybe it was particularly, maybe it would be different if I hadn't been born in Kentucky, right? Maybe it would be different if I hadn't been raised in a largely Christian upbringing. In a largely, I grew up in the Bible Belt. I mean, Indiana, mostly. I moved around every 2 or 3 years, but mostly Indiana. I grew up in a very conservative part of the country. Like there was a point. I was talking about someone with this privately about a month ago. You might not believe it, me being as socialist as I am now, but I definitely, dude, I made a lot of inappropriate jokes when I was a kid, when I was a teenager. I made a lot of jokes that were ableist or racist or sexist or whatever else because I thought it was funny to be edgy, because I liked that feeling of being edgy and like, ooh, rules don't apply to me, haha, like triggered LOL, snowflake LOL, that kind of shit. I mean, there were points when I was around 15, 16 years old that I was really reading about World War II in depth for the first time. I was looking at, when we talk about World War II, there's a lot of dangerous dialogue, dangerous conversations here in the United States. When we talk about Nazi Germany, particularly the History Channel is egregiously guilty of this. The History Channel is all up on Nazi Germany's dick in talking about like, oh wow, you know, they built these crazy, their industry did this and that, and look at this Autobahn, and oh, did the Nazis have time machines? They had some crazy technological improvements and advances, and they were at least a decade ahead of the rest of the world, and just like slobbing on that knob, right? And that really informed my understanding of the capacities of fascism. So when I was around 15 or 16 years old, I was under the impression that fascism, although under the Nazis and similar groups, had done terrible things, it in theory had incredible productive and innovative capabilities and potential. So I was really fascinated with it in theory. And this is seriously a very dangerous moment of my life that I'm talking about, and I had no idea. I was completely unaware of just how I was not very far from being dragged way off to the right. Way off to the right. So, you know, I'm talking about this because there's a lot of discussion in around, not in, around leftist circles, progressive circles, about purity tests and yada yada yada. And dude, if you dig into me being a teenager, I did and said some terrible things. And I'm not going to distance or disassociate that from myself. You know, I've deleted a lot of posts. I've washed away a lot of it very intentionally, but I'll talk about it. I'll absolutely talk about it, because no one's perfect and no one gets to where I'm at, or hopefully past where I'm at, without occasionally hitting some road bumps on the way. I was talking with now a pretty good friend of mine. My phone's just going off. I should have muted that. About their experiences, her experiences, and she's actually the one who had this conversation with me and was talking about when she was a teenager that she was like heavily fascist leaning, and now she's a socialist, or more so than I am. That was just for me, that was an incredibly humbling moment, because she was showing a lot of trust by opening up and sharing that, especially on it's liberal Twitter more than anything else. This cancel culture thing. Some leftist communities engage in this, but really, this is subtweeting what I'm doing right here. You cannot believe in transformative justice. You cannot believe in alternatives to the prison industrial complex or policing and participate in cancel culture. Cancel culture is not rehabilitative, it's not restorative, it's reactionary, it's vindictive, it's, you know, people should be held accountable to their actions. Absolutely. Absolutely. People who have taken advantage of positions of power or victimized people should never again have access to those positions of power. They have forfeited their right. Absolutely. We should really, I can't imagine, well, I can't imagine, but I'm going to say I can't imagine anyone disagreeing with that, but I can actually, and I've seen it, so I don't even have to imagine. Sure, there are people who disagree with that, but they're definitely, yeah, God architect for points, right? Yeah, Map Waifu, you're absolutely right in pointing out, I got attracted to strategy games and RTSs, which is kind of redundant to say, and kind of the whole genre for this sense of control. And that's something that I've tried to tease apart over the years. It does make me uncomfortable. I mean, you'll probably notice that I've really started playing less and less games in general, but I've been overanalyzing this shit a lot. There's a lot to dig into here. Yeah, I'm doing okay. I've been going off on a long tangent today because I've been having a hard time waking up. I've only been awake for like 3 hours now, but my brain is just not here. I feel like I should be working on something, but I can't fucking focus. I feel like, oh, well, maybe I should go out protest. My heart's not really in it today because there's a lot of local politics, and I've talked about the whole Chop Chaz thing and how I don't really buy into it, and I think it's a distraction, but it's not my moment to lead, so I'm kind of just sitting quietly and helping bailout funds and other organizations, but you know, kind of just sitting here spinning my wheels. Yeah, EU4. God, there's so many things in that game that are deeply troubling if you take a moment and start reading into them. Like, oh yeah, just convert the culture. How exactly are you converting their culture? What does that look like? Does that look like sending people to like English speaking schools like we did with so many First Peoples here in the United States and in Canada? Because as made the news somewhat recently, we found bodies of children underneath some of those schools, and oh, well, maybe that part of our history is a little more genocidal than we were letting on. Like, yeah, I'm using dove points. I'm using the bird points. It's not genocide. Like, the game doesn't say anyone dies, and that's a lot of the trouble of Paradox. So abstracting things, moving away from having provinces with population numbers or pops like in Victoria 2. In that, you actually have to engage at least a little bit with the reality of what you're doing, and you can't obfuscate it. But once you start hiding that behind, like, just painting a map or whatever else, it feels too comfortable for me, and that bothers me. I don't want it to be a comfortable or abstractable. Is that even a word? That's not a word. Experience. I want it to be a gross, uncomfortable experience that's a teachable moment. Austrian gold. Yeah. I mean, they're not perfect. They're far from it. I do love Paradox. I think that they've really lost their way. But I love them, and I hope that they find their way back. God, it's been kind of easy these last couple of weeks to get so emotionally invested and fixated on the Black Lives Matter movement, the anti-police movement, and there have been days where I'm like, oh man, I could really like stand to go get a drink after this, or like, okay, I need to get back into dating to have more of a network of folks, or you know, I want to hang out with friends, or you know, get some emotional support. And then it's like, oh wait, there's a fucking pandemic still going on, and America hasn't gone into a recession so far as infection rates gone. It's plateaued. It just kept getting worse and getting worse and getting worse, and then it stopped getting worse, but it hasn't gotten better, and it probably won't be getting better. Yeah, you're seriously reconsidering if you want to support Paradox again after the EU4 Emperor release? Yeah, I hear you. I got to that point after Imperator. The Imperator release for me, so many people were like, oh, it's gonna be great, and I'm like, it's gonna suck. Like, I don't like what I've seen. It's gonna be bad, and I bought it anyway, and I regret buying it anyway. So, EU4 DLC... yeah, I'm not buying Emperor. I don't think I'm touching EU4 for... maybe ever again. Like, it's a fun game, but I'm done. I'm done with it. They just need to release EU5, I guess, and make some very intelligent redesigns. Really, Victoria 2 is still my favorite Paradox title because of the way it actually engages with the way that it engages more with reality than abstracted reality. Why do you say Argentina's cases are gonna spike? You'll forgive me for being an ignorant gringo in the north, not paying attention to the rest of the supercontinent here. My country's literally on fire. God, I haven't even been keeping up on what's happening in Brazil. I say that because, like I've talked about before, my direct family is Brazilian. 2 weeks to open. Oh. It's been almost 2 weeks since they opened free 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. pedestrian traffic for running and cycling without enforcing distancing. You'll probably see a bit of a peak, a bit of a pickup, but here in the United States, we never really enforced pedestrian distancing or bicycling distancing. Like, the thing you're talking about being rolled back, most of us never did in the first place. Like, I live in a city, and we had guidelines not to do it, but it was never enforced. Like, we have no fucking backbone in this country when it comes to standing up to businesses or anything. And hence, how bad it is here. And we've seen cases in Texas picking up. And folks are like, it's those dang protesters. No. Still have to wait at least another week before the data we see is starting to come from the protests. And I doubt it. Alright, there's no way I'm filling this up with what we have left. So you can go there, and you can fuck off and go here. It's really, this is such a fucking privilege complaint. So I'm saying that at the outset. I recognize that what I'm about to say is hella privilege. It kind of blows, it being summer and beautiful in Seattle right now, and not really being able to go out and enjoy it. Like, yeah, parks are open, but wearing this fucking sucks. Like, if I can't breathe fresh air, if I have to breathe it through a mask that's all humid and gross, I'd rather just not go outside. Yeah, it is frustrating how impatience is the big thing right now. Like, people just getting bored of pandemic or being angry that they have to still be inside. Like, it's really frustrating. I hear you. In a more sensible country, I imagine it's more of a shock. In the United States, the way that the juvenile, impetulant way that mostly conservatives have acted has not been a surprise at all. It's just been like, oh, of course you're being absolute shitheads about this, and of course you're making it about my civil liberties rather than like the sanctity of human life or the welfare of American citizens. Of course you're making it about yourself. I woke up today in a good mood. I talked about this a little bit earlier, so I'm not going to repeat it, but then I started reading the news. And that's what started crashing my energy level, is just reading up on all these things I'm supposed to be keeping track of. Local news, protest news, the news around CHOP. There was and this hasn't really made national headlines, I guess, weirdly enough. There was a shooting yesterday morning, early morning, at CHOP, June 20th, very early in the AM. And yeah, that's pretty demoralizing. And the police issued a story about a complete bullshit story about how they couldn't get there in time because a mob of people kept them away, and that's not really the case, but okay. Yeah, I hear you. I don't have any respiratory. Well, I'm not aware of any respiratory illnesses that I have. Let's say it that way. So I don't think I'm particularly at risk, and I know how scared I've been. I know how apprehensive I've been and how cautiously I've approached this whole situation, so I can imagine it's incredibly frustrating to see other people making stupid decisions that may not immediately impact them, but will almost certainly impact you and your ability to, oh, I don't know, survive. Yeah. If you were feeling angry, you're absolutely justified in feeling angry. Because that's... yeah. God, it's so tone deaf. Here in the United States, there's people talking about, oh, those darn protesters are gonna spread COVID-19. And then we look at their photos of mostly white people hanging out in bars or at clubs or at restaurants or just like out having drinks in big groups. It's like, yes, it's those darn Black Lives Matter protesters, not Shannon and her friends getting white girl wasted. Yeah, let's blame black people for this. Let's blame those darn libs about this, not, the people who are actually ignoring what we're supposed to be doing. I mean, also the president of these United States did yesterday admit that he slowed down the COVID-19 tests and testing results here in the United States, and he might still be doing it. Like, no one even asked him. He was doing it as a boast. He was... So things are probably way worse here than we think. Oh yeah, absolutely. If you get sick, you're going to throw rocks at the nearest anti-quarantine protesters. Totally justifiable. Like, I'm genuinely amazed that folks who have gotten sick here in the United States haven't acted violently to people protesting the quarantine. I genuinely am. I am amazed at the American people's ability to just take shit lying down and not stand up for themselves and not fight back against people that are hurting them. Like, Yep. God, I've definitely thought, if I go sick, there we go, if I were to get sick, I'd really strongly consider hanging out in, conservative circles, or trying to meet the presidents, or, things like that. Like, well, if I turn into a biological weapon, there's... if I gotta go, you gotta go kind of mentality. Which is a dangerous way of thinking, and probably not a feeling I should be expressing in a virtual or public space, particularly when those virtual and public spaces are so heavily policed and recorded and blah, blah, blah. But still, that's a legitimate feeling. Yeah, imagine if the people with guns were the ones on the brink of death in a dirty hospital bed, shit would go down. Yeah, absolutely. If it were these already unhinged people. But yeah, it's... Oh, there's a lot of things to be frustrated about. Kurzgesagt. This seems like a segue. It's not. Well, it's sort of a segue. Kurzgesagt is a fantastic YouTube channel. They do deep dive analysis of all kinds of things, from scientific concepts, political studies, historical things, the human condition, philosophy, psychology, just anything and everything, really. They have some amazing content. They just released an episode yesterday or today about climate change and the leading. Kurzgesagt is. Let me just Google that real quick because Lord knows I can't spell it, and I'll spell it aloud here because I'm recording this too. Kurz. All right, I'll do this slower. Kurz. Gesagt. Yeah, this is a very easy word. What is that? Not an intuitive word? Kurzgesagt. Did I even spell that right? I did spell it right. I spelled it wrong. There's no H in there. I hate German. No sprechen Sie Deutsch. No Deutsch. I even spelled it wrong. It's Kurzgesagt. Yeah. Google it. It's a great channel. It's unfortunate they have such a shitty name. It's a good German name, but like the majority of the online audience is not Deutsch centric. They're incredible videos. I highly recommend like all of them. Sincerely. They just released one on climate change in the leading countries when it comes to CO2 and methane and other greenhouse gas production. And that was one, fascinating, really interesting to watch. Two, also incredibly depressing to watch because it got me in this spiral where it's like, and we're fucked. Like we need to be addressing this. We've needed to be addressing this for like the last 20 years, and very little has happened, and not enough has happened. And now we have a president like Donald fucking Trump and a presumptive challenger being Joe Biden. Neither of these assholes are gonna do a goddamn thing about CO2 production in the United States, and like every year we put this off, it just makes things worse and worse and worse, and which that's what got me spiraling today. Reading the news and watching that and just going on the existential, we're all fucked. Yeah, that's been my day. So I wanted to hop on for like an hour, and I've been live for just over an hour, so I'll probably wrap this up soon. As I need to water my plants, I need to do some laundry, need to make some tea. Yeah, Arctic Circle, world record temperatures, oil industry, we vibing. Yeah, exactly. Even when during this COVID-19 crisis, when we had a record number of Americans at home, not driving, they were reducing their CO2 output individually by unparalleled levels in modern history, it still was barely a blip because the problems are systemic. The problems aren't individuals so much as they are corporations and institutions. And God, in the United States, when we talk about climate change, when we talk about saving the earth, it's always focused on individual behavior. It's always focused on shaming people who litter or something else. It's never on these big institutions, and these big institutions are the things that are perpetuating what we do. Now, you know, our individual patterns of consumption and production interact with these larger institutions, but individual action, disorganized individual action, will not substantially change things. It needs to be organized, direct action. What do you mean thousands of contaminating factories do more damage than my little gas stove? Yeah, imagine that. And you keeping one light on longer or going for a drive in your car is a factor, but it's not as big of a factor as, say, the fucking factory in town, or America's beef industry. Seriously, like, I'm largely, most of my diet is vegetables. I was gonna say fruit and vegetables, but I really don't have that much fruit in my diet anymore. Yeah, mostly vegetables now. A lot of beans, a lot of nuts, a lot of legumes, because you gotta get that protein. A lot of broccoli. And then I have like dairy products, which I'm not crazy about, but omega-3 is hard to get, and there are some a couple other things are really, 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 really hard to get if you don't have animal products at all. So I'm a part of the problem here, but like, the fast food industry needs to die. Like, the beef industry in the United States needs to die. And I'm not saying this is somebody not impacted by this. My father's parents have raised beef cattle for decades. So I'm not economically removed from the fallout that this would have, but I live off of grapes and cherries. The Nero diet. Opulence. You would be very brittle if that were all that you were eating. I think I get sick of that after like 2 days. Just get supplements, asshole. Yeah, hey, I get supplements, but those supplements are also animal sourced most of the time, because a lot of these enzymes and a lot of these proteins that we need primarily, most affordably come from animal sources. Yeah. I'm not here to diet shame people, but I am here to say beef should be about 5 times as expensive as it is. We should produce way less of it. Corn is horseshit, and we shouldn't be producing that much of it. We should switch over to soybeans. So corn, okay, this is a weird thing that I know. Corn is one of the most productive foodstuffs per acreage in terms of volume. But when you talk about the nutritional value of that volume, the nutritional value of what's being produced, it's actually less nutritionally beneficial to produce corn than it is to produce soybeans. But the way the economics work is that you are not paid based off of you do not profit based off of the nutritional value that you are contributing with the farmland that you have. You are paid based off of subsidies. You're paid based off of the profitability of the crop, right? And corn can be used in corn syrup, it can be used in cattle feed, it can be used in all kinds of additives, which makes it very, 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 very valuable. Relatively. I mean, it's not like you're growing sugar cane, but it's valuable. God, I hate capitalism. I hate capitalism, and it's just what it comes back to over and over. It's just like, so the reason you're growing a shitty thing is so you can make money, not because of, you know, the actual impact of the thing you're growing or what it's used for. You're not thinking in terms of a commodity chain or a production chain, or like the way that what you're doing impacts the world around you. No, you're just ultimately doing it for financial reasons. I was unaware of this. Mafia-like soy culture in Argentina. Buy out small farms, plant only soybeans all year round, sell it to China, murder or destroy the career of anyone who tries to stop you. That's interesting. It's very interesting. The US is very different. Very different. A lot of our soybeans also go to China. A lot of our soybeans are also used in cattle feed. So much of our food production goes into... So much of our crops, I should say, go into becoming cattle feed and allowing us to produce the amount of meat that we do. If it's... it's a bad system. Our fixation on meat here in the United States and the amount of it we eat is bad for us individually on a health level, bad for us. It's just economically, just in terms of overall production, in terms of how many people we can feed with how much acreage, etc., etc. It's just like not a good look. That is an important reminder that a lot of the critiques that I bring up, whether it be on this or anything else, are highly, and maybe even irrevocably rooted in my experience here in the United States and my lens as an American. So I know I have a bad habit of making a lot of very broad statements, but they should be understood as speaking largely to the American experience, not the, mythical human experience. Because, yeah. Now, I know Argentina and Brazil, too, have some, mafioso-esque, agricultural issues that I really am not educated on to a great extent, beyond that I know that there's a lot of money to be made, and there's some folks very interested in controlling who makes that money. You might be surprised to hear that in the United States we have a very romantic idea of what Argentinian, really South American farms are like. Ranches in particular, we have a stupidly romantic perception of up here. It's very, very strange. I'm not crop shaming. I come from farm people. Both sets of grandparents own farms, but it's not for me. Oh, okay. It's been over an hour, so I should put in a cut here. I should take a break. I don't know when or what I'll be streaming. Read into the ongoing controversy surrounding the possibility of expropriation of Centene, mafioso soybean company that keeps taking loans from the government, refusing to pay it back to the next, moved most of their production through the 0 acres of plantation to Paraguay and subsidy to dodge taxes. Wow. I will Google that. I will Google that as soon as I get off stream here, like right now. That sounds super interesting. Here in the US, it's mostly just large corporations like Monsanto patenting seed genomes, making it so that if you are a farmer adjacent to a Monsanto farm and some of that seed happens to be carried over by a bird or some insect or some other animal, and those seeds take root and grow into a plant amongst your crop, and you accidentally harvest that crop, and part of your crop happens to have the genome or partial genome of a patented species from Monsanto, you can be insanely sued. You can, a lot of small farms are so affected that they lose their farms. Monsanto then buys up the property and just kind of spreads like a cancer through these local communities. Because imagine this, insects like to spread genetic material. It's almost as if that's their evolutionary function in a healthy biosphere. Oh yeah. Here in the US, we have many patents tied to certain DNA sequences, certain genomes, and it's messy. It's very messy because the building blocks of life, being intellectual property, is already a gross feeling, but then you start reading about intellectual property law here in the United States and like the way the companies like Walt Disney Company have held on to IPs for like a century. Paints a disturbing picture of the future. So with that lovely image, I am gonna I'm gonna hop off of here. Thanks for hanging out. I will hopefully be streaming or recording some stuff in this week. I don't have any update for when my mod project is going to be released. It's releasable right now, but I think I want to tweak it, and really I need to be in a certain headspace for that I just don't have the emotional capacity to be in right now. But anywho, have a great morning. I guess happy Father's Day if you're here in the US. Until tomorrow or later, I'll say toodaloo.